It's a Tuesday morning. Your calendar just got wiped clean. No warning, no context, just blank. Then the email comes. Please join this meeting at 10 a.m. HR is on it. Someone from legal too. You know what it is before the call even starts. 14 minutes later, you're unemployed. 6 years of good reviews. A manager who loved you. 0 performance issues. Doesn't matter. And here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. That story isn't rare. That exact scenario. The calendar wipe, the surprise Zoom, the 14 minutes. Played out for over 1 million people in 2025 alone. At companies that were profitable. At companies with billions in cash. At companies where the people being let go had done nothing wrong. So before you go back to your day feeling fine about your job, I need you to hear this. You are probably hard to fire. But hard to fire and actually safe. Those are not the same thing. And nobody ever told you the difference. That difference is what this video is about. And I promise you, once you see it, you'll start looking at your own situation completely differently. Starting with a number that should not make sense. A Pew Research survey found that 69% of American workers rate their job security as fair or good. Nearly 7 in 10 people. Feeling okay. Feeling stable. Same year. 1,209,215 announced layoffs. That number is from Challenger, Gray, and Christmas. One of the most rigorous workforce research firms in the country. 1.2 million people. Not during a recession. Not during a pandemic. During a year when the S&P 500 was doing just fine. Both of those facts are true at the same time. Sit with that. 7 out of 10 workers feel secure. 1.2 million lost their jobs anyway. So either most people are right, or there's something specific happening inside the human brain that makes danger feel like safety. There is. And it has a name. But before we get there, you need to understand how 2 completely invisible systems are quietly governing your employment. Because one of them protects you, and one of them doesn't protect you at all. There are 2 completely separate systems governing your employment. Most people have no idea both exist. System 1, individual termination. This actually has teeth. If your manager wants to push you out, for performance or worse, for something illegal, there's an entire process. Documentation, HR reviews, performance improvement plans, legal sign-offs. Data suggests the full process takes 6 to 9 months at most established companies. It's expensive. It creates liability. It genuinely protects you. Remember that number, 6 to 9 months. Because the next number is going to hit differently. System 2, layoffs. Officially called a reduction in force. And it operates in a completely different legal universe. A company can eliminate your entire department. Today. Not next quarter. Today. They don't need a performance reason for you specifically. They don't need any documentation of your individual work at all. The legal threshold is essentially business conditions have changed. That's it. That's enough. 6 to 9 months of protection. For individual firing, 0 days of protection. For a mass layoff. And here's the question nobody asks until it's too late. Which one are you actually afraid of? If your answer is being fired, you're worried about the wrong system. Think about the kind of person who got cut in 2025. Not a slacker. Not someone on a performance plan. A senior engineer at a major tech company. 9 years in. 2 promotions. Just bought a house. His manager told him in his last review. Verbatim. You're exactly the kind of person we're building around. 3 months later, his entire org was eliminated. No warning. No individual reason given. Just, business conditions have changed. His story isn't the exception. It's the pattern. In 2025, tech companies cut somewhere between 127,000 and 153,000 jobs. Up 17% from the year before. Not at struggling startups. At companies reporting profits. And Q1 of 2026 has already logged 217,000 more cuts across retail and tech, with layoffs running at roughly 1.7 million per month according to Bureau of Labor Statistics data. Here's the number that ties it all together. 35% of companies have said they plan AI-driven headcount reductions before the end of 2026. Not task automation. Actual job eliminations, justified by what a software tool now does. And yet, here's the part that doesn't add up. Through all of it. Through every headline, every LinkedIn post from a laid-off friend, every team update email that showed up on a Friday, 69% of American workers still rate their job security as fair or good. That number isn't a sign of optimism. It's a sign of something specific happening in your brain. Something with a name. And once you know what it is, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Here's what it feels like from the inside. You know your job isn't perfect. You've had the thought, maybe once a quarter, that you should probably start looking around. And then you don't. Not because the thought scared you, because it just kind of faded. The week got busy. Things were fine enough. It didn't feel urgent. That's not laziness. That's your brain doing something very specific. Psychologists call it status quo bias. Your brain treats your current situation as the default. The thing that simply is. Any change, even one that might genuinely help you, registers as a threat. Not because it's logically riskier, because it's unfamiliar. So the brain finds reasons to stay, and quietly stops looking for reasons to go. But here's where it turns dangerous. Status quo bias doesn't just make you prefer the current situation. It makes you actively miscalculate the risk of it. You've been at your job for 4 years. It's fine. Not great. Not miserable. Fine. Your brain takes 4 years of fine and treats it as evidence of stability. Like a track record. Like proof that you're okay. It's not proof of anything. It's a streak. In a system that can end the streak. For everyone on your floor. With a single executive decision on a Wednesday afternoon. Meanwhile, the warning signs are there. Your company quietly cut 6% of its workforce 2 years ago. Your role overlaps meaningfully with what an AI tool does now. Your industry is consolidating. But none of that has affected you personally. Yet. So your brain files it under not my problem. That's the illusion. The feeling of stability and actual stability have come completely apart. The feeling is generated by familiarity. Actual stability has to be built. And most people aren't building it. Here's the assumption most people are quietly running right now. Even if layoffs happen, I'll be okay. Because I know things nobody else knows. I have 12 years of institutional knowledge. I understand our systems. I'm the person they call when something breaks. I am, in the truest sense of the word, indispensable. That used to be the right strategy. And 35% of companies now say they're planning AI-driven headcount reductions in 2026. Not automation of simple tasks. Actual eliminations of roles. Including, in many cases, the ones held by the people who knew the most. In the recent wave of tech layoffs, data shows that new grads and mid-level employees were hit hard. But so were senior individual contributors. People with 8, 10, 12 years of deep expertise. Because what AI is replacing isn't just the person doing rote tasks. In many cases, it's the person who spent a decade becoming the company's internal expert on something that an LLM can now approximate in 30 seconds. To be clear, AI isn't replacing everyone. Many roles are genuinely evolving. But the strategy of I know too much to cut only works when knowledge is the scarce resource. It's becoming less scarce, fast. And if you haven't updated your answer to the question, why exactly would they keep me? You may be running an old operating system in a new environment. Those don't crash with a warning. They just stop working one day. Stop for a second and ask yourself something honest. Not, do you like your job? That's too easy to answer. Ask this. Are you thriving in it? Gallup has been tracking this exact question for years. And their data shows that only 46% of American workers would answer yes. Not happy. Not satisfied. Thriving. Their own word, their own definition, their own bar. Less than half clear it. Which means right now as you watch this, there's a statistically strong chance you're part of the majority. Showing up every day. Doing the work. And quietly not thriving. And yet, staying. Because leaving is terrifying. The market feels unstable. You've built up seniority. You know the unwritten rules. Starting over feels like jumping off a cliff into fog. So you stay. In something that isn't working. Convincing yourself it's the stable choice. Here's the real gut punch. The people most convinced they're being smart by staying put are often the most exposed. Because their entire sense of financial security, professional identity, and daily structure runs through a single company's decisions. One bad quarter. One new CEO. One AI roadmap presentation to the board. And everything changes. That's not stability. That's a single point of failure. Here's something nobody says out loud, but almost everyone suspects. Your company needs you to be fully dependent on your company. Think about what that looks like day to day. The long hours that feel like dedication. The weekend Slack messages that feel like inclusion. The we're like a family culture that feels like belonging. None of it is necessarily cynical, but all of it has the same structural effect. It leaves you with no time and no psychological space to build anything outside. That's not a coincidence. A fully dependent employee is a predictable employee. Easier to retain, cheaper to retain, and quietly more vulnerable. Because everything runs through one source. Now look at the people who came through the 2025 layoff wave in the best shape. They weren't always the top performers. They were the ones who had already broken that dependency. not by working less, but by building in parallel. Skills that traveled across companies, not just up one org chart. A network outside their own building. Enough financial runway that what's next didn't have to mean whatever's available. Not a side hustle necessarily. Just something that existed independently of one company's quarterly decisions. The difference between those people and everyone else wasn't talent. It wasn't loyalty. It was whether they understood, before the Zoom call, that all of their eggs were in one basket. Most people don't realize that until the basket is gone. There's one thing I keep coming back to. In the weeks after a mass layoff, journalists always go talk to the people who got cut. And they always say some version of the same thing. I didn't see it coming. Not because they were naive. Not because the signs weren't there. Because they were busy being good at their job. Trusting the system. Assuming the protections they felt were the protections they had. Here's the truth. You are probably hard to fire. In the individual, documented HR process sense. That protection is real. But the 1.2 million people who lost their jobs in 2025 weren't fired. They were laid off. And a reduction in force doesn't read your performance review. It doesn't know your manager loves you. It doesn't care that you just got promoted or that you're halfway through a project nobody else can touch. It's a business decision, not a verdict on you as a person. And it can reach anyone at almost any company with almost no individual warning. The pace in 2026 hasn't slowed. And the worker's still feeling fine? Still 69%. That gap is not an accident. It's what happens when a system designed to protect you from one thing makes you forget you're exposed to something else entirely. I want to leave you with one question. Not should you quit. Not is your company about to lay you off. Just this. If your job disappeared tomorrow, not because of anything you did, just gone, what would you actually have? Not what would you do? You'd figure out what to do. People always do. What would you have? What skills would travel with you to any company, any industry? What relationships exist outside your own org chart? What financial breathing room gives you the power to say no to bad offers? What have you been building? Quietly, on the side, for yourself. That a single business decision couldn't touch. Because that's the actual measure of job security. Not whether your performance reviews are clean. Not whether your manager likes you. Not whether you've been there long enough to feel comfortable. The real question has never been whether your job is stable. It's whether you are.